If you have x plus 5 equals 10, how would you solve that? What would you do? Yep, you subtract 5, Ahmed, that's right. Subtract 5 from both sides. And you have x equals what? 5. This is known as conditional equations. This is a conditional equation. Why? Why they call it conditional equation? It's only true, this equation only true for x equals 5. Any other number, this will not be true. If you let x be 3, this side does not equal to that side. If x equals 4, this side does not equal to that side. That's why it's called a conditional equation. Some of them is called identity. It's good for any value of x. Doesn't matter what you pick for x. So I'm going to stay with conditional equations for now. Do more. Make the problem a little bit bigger maybe. 3x plus 8 equals 2x minus 7. My goal when I'm solving these equations is to put all the x's on one side, all the numbers on the opposite side. All the x's on one side. There's a country song like this. All my exes live in Texas, now I live in LA. So you want to do the same thing. You want all the x's in Texas and all the numbers to LA. Actually, it's a good country song. I don't know who sings it. So I'm going to move that 2x to this side. Instead of subtracting numbers and all that, I use change side, change sign. That's easier for me, especially when you have multiple movement. So I use the phrase change side, change sign. These are my phrases. I made them up. You'll never find them in a math book. Change sign. That's a D here. Change side, change sign. Meaning what? Well, I want the 8 to go to that side, the plus 8. And I want the 2x to go to this side. This will allow me to put all the x's on one side, all the numbers on the other side. So here we go, 3x. When you bring that 2x to this side, it becomes what? Negative 2x. I'm moving the plus 8 to that side. When you move it, becomes what? Negative 8 minus the 7. What's 3x minus 2x? Just x. What's negative 8 minus 7? Negative 15. So when you're solving what we call linear equation, these are linear. Why they call them linear? What's the highest power of x? 1. When the highest power of x is 1, you have a linear equation. What happens if your equation is not linear? It's quadratic. There's lots of ways of solving this problem. One method we know from algebra is called the square root method. Remember the square root method? If you have something squared equals a number, that's something which is in this case x must equal plus or minus the square root of that number. Plus or minus. So that's what? X equals plus or minus 2. Why does a quadratic equation has two solutions? Why is a linear equation has only one solution? When you graph a linear equation, you're graphing a straight line. That's what you're graphing. We're looking to see where does the line intersect the x-axis. Where does it intersect the x-axis? Straight line is only going to cross the x-axis if it does at one spot. Sometimes it doesn't cross. Why? If you have y equals to 4, that's horizontal. That never crosses the x-axis. But when you graph a quadratic equation, the shape is what? Parabola. So you could have two solutions, because parabola will look sometimes like this. And there's where the -2 and the +2. But also parabola could look something like this. And that's only one solution. Or it could look like this. And that's no solution. It doesn't cross the x-axis. So when you're solving a quadratic equation, there's three possible answers. 2, 1, or 0, or none. 2 when you have something like this. 1 when you have something just touches the axis and it goes back up or down and continues. Like it could look something like this. And no solution, you have something that comes down, then it goes back up there, or something like this one. These have no solution because they do not cross the x-axis. So I'm going to focus on the ones that cross like at 2 points, most of them. Let me take another example. This is a quadratic equation. And if you recall again from algebra, if the first step when you're solving a quadratic equation, you want to move everything to one side. So if you move everything to one side, you'll have x squared minus 5x minus 6 is equal to 0. Step number 2, factor completely. Let's factor completely. So if you factor that, what are we going to have? Isn't it x minus 6x plus 1? That'll give me the negative 5x in the middle, the minus 6 at the end. And step number 3, set each factor equal to 0 and solve it. So here we go, x minus 6 equals 0. X plus 1 equals 0. What's x equal to? 6. What's x equal to? Negative 1. So we have two solutions. Still, it's a conditional equation. It's only correct, only true when x equals negative 1 or 6. That's when this side will equal to 6. When x is minus 1 or 6. Any other value, they will not. So I'm going to just give different problems, conditional equations. Some might be linear, some quadratic. I'll try to find some bigger ones. Let's say I got this one. X minus 7 equals 3x minus 6x minus 8. And I want to solve that equation. What's the first step here? What do you think? Take care of that minus. Distribute that sign, right? So that would be x minus 7 equals 3x. A minus sign in front is going to change all the signs on the inside. It's going to make it negative 6x plus the 8. And before I start moving x's to one side, let me clean this side. Let me simplify it. What is 3x minus 6x? Isn't that negative 3x? Again, all the x's on one side, it's a linear equation. All the numbers on the opposite side. Change side, change sign. X plus 3x. The other side will be plus 7 plus 8. What's x plus 3x? 4x equals what? 15. What's x equal to? 15 over 4. One number. That's the only point that will satisfy that equation. So if I write down the step how I solve this problem, what was my first step? What did I do first? Well, I removed, right? So remove grouping. I took care of that minus sign. Next step I did is what? Combine like terms on each side. In this case, it was only one side. I took the 3x and the negative 6x, put them together. Step number 3, I move the variable, I don't want to say x, could be y, to one side, and the numbers to the other side. And once I did that, the last step is solve for x, solve for the variable. That's really what I did there. So but I always start with the parentheses. If you have parentheses, take care of them. Then start cleaning. Again, this is a conditional equation. It's only good when what? It's only true when x equals 15 over 4. Now let's take this problem. 6x plus 8 equals 3 times 2x plus 5 minus the 7. Now I want to solve that one. I just finished writing the procedure for solving this equation. I says remove the grouping. I gotta remove this. How do you remove that? Distribute this, yes. That'll be what? 3 times 2? 6x plus 15 minus the 7 equals 6x plus the 8. It says combine like terms on each side. On the right side, if you combine like terms, what's plus 15 minus 7?
8.
Plus 8. Step number 3, I says move all the x's to one side. It doesn't matter which side. I always tend to go to the left, but really doesn't matter. All the numbers to the other side. 6x minus 6x equals what? 8 minus 8. What is 6x minus 6x? 0 equals what? 0. This is always true. Any day you wake up, any time, 0 is always going to be equal to 0. What does that mean? What's the solution? What number can we use? Any number. You have an infinite solution to that one. Any value of x will work here. So it's not a conditional equation. This is an identity. Any value that you pick, the left side will equal the right side. So your solution, all real numbers. That's what your solution is. Again, it's not a conditional equation. This is an identity now. That's correct all the time. Now let me modify that problem just a hair. Let's say I didn't think really about this problem, and I made it like this. And I just wrote this. Let's just use these numbers and see what will happen. The left side, no change to it. But the right side is going to be what? I got to distribute that one. So what's 3 times 2x? 6x plus the 15 minus the 4. What's 15 minus 4? Is that 11? All the x's on one side, all the numbers on the opposite side. (11 minus 8). 0 equals what? 3. How often you looked in the math book, you saw 0 equals 3? This will never be true. What does that mean? That means this problem has no solution. You will never find one number that if you plug it in, the left side will equal the right side. Yes.
When so the 6x minus 6x, can we represent the final answer as x?
Not x, 0x, which is 0. The one thing I didn't do here, I'm just looking in the back of the book. What would you do if you have fractions in that problem? I know a lot of people don't like fractions, so I'll make something up here. I try not to use the ones you have on the screen. I try to save them for you for extra practice. What about if you have x over 2 equals 17 over 6? When you have a single fraction on the left and a single fraction on the right, the easiest way of solving that is called cross multiply. This times this should equal this times that. Cross multiply. What's x times 6? 6x. What's 2 times 17? 34, right? To solve for x, we're going to divide both sides by 6. X equals, if I simplify that, is that 17 over 3? Because you can divide the top and the bottom by 2. Let's look at that problem. I try to stack fractions in it. I don't think there's that many people that like fractions. That includes me. So if I can get rid of them, I'm going to try everything in my power to get rid of those fractions. We can get rid of them in one step. One step and all these fractions are gone. And what's that? You find the LCD for these little fractions, 2/3 and 1/4. What's the LCD? Let's multiply each one of these terms by 12. Only addition, subtraction, separate terms. So 12 times this, 12 times this, that's one term, 12 times that. What's 12 times x? 12x. What's 12 times 2? 24 divided by 3? Is it 8? What's 12 times 1? 12 divided by 4? 3. Notice there's not a single fraction left in the problem. That is the quickest way to clean an equation that has a lot of fractions. Now we can solve it. 12x plus 8 equals what? 3x minus 15. All the x's on one side, all the numbers on the opposite side. 12x minus 3x equals negative 8 minus the 15. What's 12x minus 3x? 12 12x minus 3x is it 9x? What's negative 8 minus 15? Negative 23. And to solve for x, we're going to divide by 9.